Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into decoding an ancient 2,500-year-old psychological framework from the Uddesa-vibhanga Sutta. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the constant distractions of the modern world, or, found yourself frustrated when your fleeting moments of peace just vanish, you are absolutely going to love this. We're looking at a system that perfectly dissects the mechanics of modern anxiety, and it's all derived directly from this one classical source. Let's get right into it.
So, our source material kicks off with this fantastic, almost theatrical narrative moment. The Buddha is addressing his monks, and he drops this incredibly cryptic, profound statement about the ultimate key to ending stress. He says, a monk should investigate in such a way that his consciousness neither externally scattered and diffused nor internally positioned, he would from lack of clinging be unagitated. And then? Well, he just gets up from his seat and abruptly leaves. He literally walks right back into his dwelling without explaining a single word of it, leaving his monks completely baffled.
Okay, let's try to figure this riddle out together. Imagine the monks just standing there, looking at each other, wondering what on earth a consciousness neither externally scattered nor internally positioned actually means. To find out, they seek out a fellow monk, the highly respected and wise Venerable Mahākāccana, and they beg him to unpack this incredibly dense psychological puzzle for them.
Now, Mahākāccana actually gives them a bit of a hard time at first, with his brilliant, slightly humorous analogy. He basically tells them that coming to him instead of just asking the Buddha is like a guy looking for the strong heartwood of a tree, but totally bypassing the main root and trunk to go rummaging through the branches and leaves. He reminds them, hey, the Buddha is the ultimate source of knowledge here. But thankfully for those monks, and well for us, he agrees to analyze the unanalyzed meaning.
He starts off by introducing us to the very first psychological trap that causes our suffering, the externally scattered mind. I mean, we all know what it feels like to be pulled in a million different directions, right? But the Sutta actually breaks this down into a precise, mechanical process of exactly how our attention gets hijacked.
He identifies 6 distinct sensory inputs that capture our consciousness: forms we see with the eye, sounds we hear with the ear, aromas, flavors, tactile sensations, and finally, ideas cognized with the intellect. Mahākāccana explains that when our consciousness follows the drift of any of these things, it gets tied, chained, and fettered to the attraction. Think about it in our world. A smartphone notification chimes. That's a sound. Or a sudden worry pops into your head. That's an idea. Immediately, your consciousness is chained to it. It gets pulled away, scattered, and entirely diffused.
And that builds right into the second, much more surprising trap, the internally positioned mind. Because logically, if being pulled by the outside world is the problem, you'd think that pulling your mind completely inward would be the absolute solution, right? Well, actually, scratch that. Mahākāccana points out that going entirely inward is an equally dangerous trap.
To really understand this internal trap, we first need to quickly define a core concept called jhana. Simply put, jhana refers to entering incredibly deep states of meditative concentration. It's a state where a practitioner completely withdraws from sensuality and unskillful qualities to find this intense, profound internal focus and peace.
Mahākāccana describes a progression through 4 of these jhanas. First, you have rapture and pleasure born from just withdrawing from the world. Second, rapture born from deep concentration. Third, that rapture fades into equanimity and mindful pleasure. And finally, you hit the 4th jhana, which is a pure state of equanimity where there's literally neither pleasure nor pain. I mean, these sound like the ultimate goal, don't they?
But here is the massive catch. The text warns of a hidden danger lurking within these profound states. Even in these deeply blissful, concentrated states, a practitioner's consciousness can start following the drift of that very rapture and peace. It becomes tied, chained, and fettered to the attraction of tranquility itself. When this happens, the mind becomes internally positioned. You're essentially getting addicted to your own internal comfort zone. So, let's step back for a second. If being constantly pulled by the external world scatters us, and clinging to the internal world of meditation traps us, what is the actual psychological root of all this agitation? The sutta drives right to the absolute bottom of it, pointing straight at the mechanics of clinging and our fragile concept of the self.
Mahākāccana explains that an uninstructed person makes a huge mistake. They build their entire identity out of 5 temporary elements, which are called the aggregates. They assume that their physical form, their feelings, their perceptions, their mental fabrications, or their consciousness is their actual permanent self. They look at these shifting, temporary pieces and say, yep, this is me.
And here is the real kicker. Because all 5 of these elements are inherently unstable, they're constantly changing, the uninstructed person's consciousness violently alters right along with them. As the text explicitly states, because of this change and instability, their mind stays consumed. They feel fearful, threatened, and overly solicitous. Think about it. If you genuinely believe your physical form is the core of you, then aging or sickness isn't just an event, it feels like a literal threat to your very existence.
Which brings us to the ultimate resolution of the Buddha's riddle. How do we actually cultivate a consciousness that achieves true non-agitation? The secret isn't about running away from our senses, and it sure isn't about hiding in some deep meditative trance. It's fundamentally, at its core, about a lack of clinging.
Think about the stark contrast here. On one side, the uninstructed person assumes those shifting aggregates are their true self, so they are perpetually terrified by the inevitable changes of life. But on the flip side, the instructed disciple interacts with the exact same world, they experience the exact same shifting forms and feelings, but they don't assume these things are the self. Because they refuse to cling to them as their identity, their consciousness just doesn't alter when things change. Their awareness isn't consumed, and they feel absolutely zero fear or threat. So after thoroughly unpacking all of this, the monks are thrilled. They take this detailed decoding right back to the Buddha. And the Buddha completely validates Mahakaccayana's profound analysis. He tells them Mahakaccayana is wise. If you had asked me about this matter, I too would have answered in the exact same way he did. That is its meaning, and that is how you should remember it. Boom! The riddle is officially solved.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to turn this ancient framework directly over to you. As you navigate your own highly stimulated life today, taking in a barrage of notifications, ideas, pleasures, and stresses, where is your consciousness clinging? Is it getting scattered out into the external world? Is it stubbornly positioned in some internal comfort zone you've built? Or are you suffering simply because you're clinging to a changing, fragile sense of self? Take a step back today, observe the mechanics of your own mind, and see if you can finally find that unagitated center.